The Tornvang has finally arrived in World of Tanks console, and of course it is the Tornvang Black, and it is part of the new Black Friday update that Wargaming released yesterday. As of the recording and publishing of this video, you're seeing, of course, the Tornvang Black. Now, this vehicle has been on World of Tanks PC for probably a year and a bit now. In fact, it probably is coming up to a year. I believe it was released at Christmas last year, but of course it's taken Wargaming a little bit of time to come out with it on console. But for those of you that may not know what this tank is, it is the Swedish Tier 8 heavy tank that has basically unpennable turret armor unless you're loading very high penetration rounds within tier 10s, and even then you're most likely not going to be able to pen this thing anyway. So it also gets 10 degrees of gun depression, so much like all of the other Swedish heavy tanks, you have that ability to get hold down and just essentially rinse your opponents of all of their hit points on these ridge lines. And this map that we're going to be showcasing today is a good replay that showcases what this tank can do, and of course we've got another replay after this one that showcases some things that maybe aren't quite as good about the tank as well. Now, first things first, what does this tank offer you? Well, it offers you the kind of experience of playing a really nice solid turret armor heavy tank. Now, in doing so, you lose a lot of things, and we can talk about those now. And number one is probably the mobility of the vehicle. It is fairly slow. You're probably looking at about 25 to 30 kilometers an hour on average most of the time when you're actually driving around. There are some exceptions where maybe you can go slightly faster. Yeah, but for the most part, you're probably looking at 25 to 30 kilometers an hour. And that is kind of painful when you're playing in a tank that has terrible damage per minute. And that's the next thing. The tank has very bad damage per minute, and you're having to wait, what, like 10 seconds for 400 damage, and that is with all of the perks, all of the equipment, everything that can possibly improve your damage per minute has been applied to the vehicle that we're using. We're using advanced loader, we're using also, I believe it's the gun rammer kind of equipment as well. So we've got the skill, we've got the equipment, I think we're also using ventilation as well, and we've still got, what, 10.9 second reload. Remember, we are also using enhanced combat rations, which reduces your reload quite substantially as well. And so in general, this tank is very, very annoying to be able to reliably get some damage. Now, granted, the accuracy of the tank is not awful. We're able to snap a shot against the Sentinel there on the enemy team, and we're able to also hit the T-77. But you'll notice that the aiming time of the Tornvang is kind of annoying, and it's really one of those that can be very, very painful when it comes to just playing in general, but playing against it is really boring as well. And I find that with some of these vehicles that Wargaming have been releasing recently, is that yes, they may be really, like, you know, solid tanks, and they may be kind of fun for some people. Like, even when you play them though, they can be really boring to play because, you know, you don't want to sit around for 11 seconds where you can't impact the game. And equally, the gameplay style that the tank kind of rewards is that of playing on a ridgeline and literally just sitting there going, here's my turret, I'm going to wait until you shoot at me because there's nothing else that they can do against you. Yeah, I was never really a fan of it. But you can see here, this is what the Tornvang is made for. It's coming up against even some of the really nice turreted tanks like the T-29, and just being a nuisance, penning them through the turret roof, of course, with the fantastic penetration that this tank does provide you. I believe it has somewhere in the region of about 297mm of penetration on its premium rounds, and I believe it also has 250mm on its standard rounds. So really good penetration to begin with, and of course it is a premium, so you're earning a ton of silver when playing this as well. So not only do you earn a lot of silver, you will also be able to earn some crew XP as well, and also some extra XP on top of that. Now, we're in a bit of a sticky situation here, and unfortunately the traverse speed of the Tornvang is not very good, so you're always kind of likely to get caught out if you've got to move to the left or the right or whatever it might be. It can be really annoying. So these are all things that you kind of have to consider when playing the Tornvang, and it's not just the simple, go towards the opponents and hope that you bounce some rounds. It is more of a, you have to think a bit more methodically, because it won't always go your way. Now you can see me here coming up against the SU-130 PM, who just didn't really know how to pen the Tornvang. Now, granted, the lower plate is somewhere where you can definitely hit, and he does manage to actually hit the lower plate in that shell. We've also now got an IS who's pushing forward. I've got a HE round loaded, so ideally we want to use it on the SU, and we snap it into his turret. The IS also having trouble to be able to reliably pen the Tornvang. So yeah, I guess it's because of the slim lower plate that you get in this thing. Granted, the upper plate isn't great either, but yeah, we do get penned pretty much every time when you show your hull armor, if anyone has any degree of accuracy, or they don't just get removed by Wargaming's accuracy rating and RNG. But yeah, that showcased a decent game, 4,700 damage, 1,400 assistance as well, looking at about 6,000 combined damage in, of course, the Tornvang, also blocking 1,600 damage, which doesn't usually happen in a heavy tank at tier 8, I must say, but yeah, not a bad result, nearly 2,000 base experience, but the key thing is that it showcased what it's like in the best of scenarios, but what happens when it's maybe not the best of scenarios and you have to do something else. Now then, Vineyards is the map that we're on about in today's video as the second replay, and the key thing about Vineyards, or from what I've enjoyed about Vineyards, is that there are a ton of different things that can be painful when playing it if you're playing a heavy tank, but if you play a heavy tank with gun depression, it can be a hell of a lot nicer. And I often find that I always get let down by the teammates on this map, because for some unbeknownst reason everyone decides that they'll camp in H and J, 8 and 9 for some reason, camping on top of the hill thinking that they're going to have a great game. And of course that very rarely happens when you're camping that far back, and there's so much room for opportunity to get both damage and assistance damage when playing on Vineyards, because of course when you're pushing forward, when you're in these sorts of positions where you can go forward, where you can catch people out, then yeah, of course you're going to end up with a decent amount of damage. And like, to be honest with you, when you're in this sort of position, it's really easy to farm up some damage like against this Tiger 2, and we're able to just put some damage out early in the game, and that is really what you want when playing something like this tank. And you want to make sure that every single time you're able to hit your opponents, because ultimately at the end of the day the damage per minute of this tank is pretty bad. And of course, in typical artillery fashion, they take another 1,000 hit points off of me, my health, and basically put me on a 2-shot for everything within this game. So of course, why wouldn't it? But yeah, I kind of just, you got to plod along even in games like this where you get hit by arty, and yeah, it might be slightly annoying. Yeah, guess it means it's a lot harder to carry this game. But something that I've noticed when playing World of Tanks console and in tanks like this is that it's really, really good if you can get into an aggressive position with this tank, because what you can do is you don't have to be the furthest forward, you don't have to be the one that is YOLOing through the middle of the field, but if you are in a position like we're in here in this tank, you're going to be able to at least get some damage on some people who may be YOLOing themselves, or at least have an opportunity at hitting someone, anyone, anywhere. Now, you can see my team, of course, being absolutely happy, and for some reason 10 of them all sat in one square doing absolutely nothing against the people that they're supposed to be doing damage to, of course thinking that they're probably quite good at the game. We'll see the end screen, but yeah, it's really, really frustrating when you see this sort of I guess not perspective, but this kind of arrangement of your team, because it's so annoying. There's no reason why they should be there, and there is no benefit. Like, the only benefit is maybe if you have a tank destroyer sat up there who can protect people in the field. But remember, absolutely no one has any kind of awareness within the game to look over to the field where there's literally tanks out in the open. They'd rather just camp and pre-aim things that are directly in front of them and not even be able to hit the things that are supposedly the ones that they're going to be dealing damage to. Now, this is a terrible situation, but you're seeing here what happens if people don't fully aim. Now, we're not an absolute bot, so we know that the T29 has the quicker reload than the Borsig. We also know that if I can get forward and don't have to take that hit against the Borsig, I can maybe get a hit into him. Oh, and we do. And now that I'm progressing forward, it's going to make the Borsig's job of hitting the lower plate a lot harder. And you can see him kind of not knowing where to hit the Tornvang, and in his kind of blindness, I guess, to our weak points, he ends up doing nothing. So we'll take the great result. We then try and get a nice shot into the Tiger II, thinking like, you know, I'm probably only going to get one more hit within this game. Artillery's ever closer to me. And yeah, I'm hoping that maybe if I can back up a little bit, my team on the hill will be able to support me. And you'd think, oh, they've been up there the entire game. Of course, now it's time for them to push with me. Maybe they should come into the field, clear up this flank since there's like 3 people. No, they're just going to stay there for the entire game and do probably very little damage and impact the game very little. And then on the complete contrast, my teammate in the heavy tank that you can see YOLOing through the center of the map, where you've got all of the tank destroyers, the mediums, and basically anyone that is over in the castle can hit him. I don't know what he was doing, but of course not the best option. If you are going to take a route, you probably shouldn't go through the centre of the map in the HMH Chrysler K, which, yes, frontally is quite good, but as soon as anyone actually sees the side of you, which there are tank destroyers and also mediums over to the left, they're just going to rinse the rest of your hit points, and even with premium rounds, some of them will be able to just pen the front of the Chrysler. So he is gone, and it's looking like we probably are also going to be gone. Now, in hindsight, what I should have done here is just pulled right back, come down into the dip, and use the gun depression of the Tornvang to be able to get some damage. But I'm thinking, you know what, maybe I could be the one that actually spots within this game. That's my thought process at the time. Now, was that the right was it the right choice to hope that my teammates will be able to actually hit anyone, or maybe actually move from the position that they've been in? Well, I guess you'll see. But yeah, that I'm pinging to my teammates, come on, let's actually move and actually go into the field, please. Very rarely do I actually ping, but I'm thinking, you know what, this is an easy win if they just move. But, you know, typical players, for some reason, camping at the back. In the CS52 list, the top tier medium tank with pretty good gun, DPM, and of course a pretty good tank overall. And yeah, still sat in base doing absolutely jack all, but there we go. I've done 3,000 damage. It's not particularly the most amazing game. I try and get shot on the 53 TP through the buildings, which we know about, and yes, we do manage to pen him, getting us an extra shell of damage. Thumbs up. Now, there are a few things to note: that the enemy Tiger II has pushed out into the open of the field, and for some reason no one's deciding that they're going to hit him. The 53 TP, or a similar sort of tank, yes, I believe it is the 53 TP, is sat in their base. So I'm thinking, come on, please, medium tanks, let's actually move. Let's actually try and do something, and then they can move round, flank from the northern side of the map, spot someone, and then we can win the game. No, I'm just going to sit in this position, hoping that my teammate are going to move. I ping once again, telling him please actually move, but it's not the case, and unfortunately this is World of Tanks console, and I mean it probably is World of Tanks on PC as well. I don't know, people's ability to actually move is obviously down to maybe that they don't want to actually move or have an impact. I don't know, but yeah, we've done 3,000 damage, which is double the hit points of our tank, so you know, from a perspective like that, it's a okay game, but it's pale in comparison to the previous game. But we are starting to get a little bit more damage within this, and now I am in a real pickle because we're caught between a rock and a hard place. I'm thinking the fact that I'm even caught in this sort of mess with the tank literally behind me when my team are sat there is annoying as well, because at least it would have been nice to have him out of the game. We finish off the T-34-100, the Tiger II then decides he's going to try and YOLO. Don't quite know what's going on his brain, but he gets actually finished off by the camper in the base, and finally we kind of have a little bit of breathing room within this. So I'm thinking, please, all we need to do is kind of get out of here. But unfortunately for us, because of the speed of the Tornvang, because of the just annoying way in which this tank works, you just can't do anything, or at least you can't do enough in these sorts of games where you can come out with victories like that. Now, of course, I'm very triggered about this ITA Spartacus bloke who for some reason thinks that camping in the back, and the most annoying thing is that he didn't have an awful game, like it's not terrible, but 2,000 damage when you really consider when that damage was dealt and actually how useful of a player he really was, it doesn't really help at all. And anyone can really camp at the back and maybe just farm some damage hoping that you're going to win, but I can probably guess that the win rate of the player is a lot less than the amount of damage he's done. So it's just annoying, and we could have quite easily won that game. Granted, I went into a bad spot, doesn't mean that my team should YOLO in. I was just hoping that they should actually move into a better position for themselves and maybe come away with a win. But hey, I'm not the all-tier god at World of Tanks console, obviously, hence this game and hence why we lost, and I could have definitely done some other things. But it showcases that although the Tornvang can have good games, there are situations where you just feel like you get yourself into a position and then you cannot leave. Like, I got myself into that position, there's no way I'm going to escape, the mobility is terrible, the armour especially is bad if you get caught out in the open, so you get punished quite hard in those sorts of scenarios. But that's what these reviews about. The overall opinion on the Tornvang B is that it's probably not worth the money that you have to spend to be able to get it, and I don't think that this is particularly an overpowered tank. It's got very bad DPM, the armour can work on the turret, but you sacrifice quite a lot to be able to have that. Yes, it's very boring to come up against when you see it on a ridgeline, but other than that, it's kind of a bit lackluster. But I'd rather it be that than them releasing another Cobra T-54, but hopefully this video has summarised the entirety of the Tornvang B, the different playstyles, how it usually goes about business, and the sorts of games that you're probably going to see when playing this. And yeah, hopefully that gave you a good indication. Of course, let me know your opinions on the Tornvang and the Tornvang B, or whether you've played it on console or PC or whatever you're playing it on. It'd be really interesting to see what you guys have to say in the comment section down below. So other than that, hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and stay tuned for the TL9 or the TL7, the other premium black tank released at Tier 9. I'll catch you there. Goodbye.